A bird hangs above a street as if the sky has forgotten to let it fall. A car slides through traffic, vanishes behind a passing truck, and appears again where no road should have allowed it to be. In a shopping mall, two strangers dressed alike cross the frame with the same steps, the same posture, the same vacant timing. For 1 second, everything looks ordinary. For the next, reality seems to hesitate. That hesitation is why these clips endure. Not because they give us answers, but because they disturb the quiet agreement we live inside every day. That time moves forward, objects stay where they are, shadows obey light, and the world does not misplace itself. In this journey, we are not asking anyone to abandon reason. We are asking a more careful question. When a camera records something that feels impossible, what exactly has failed? The world, the machine, or our expectation of both? The answer may not be a doorway into another universe. It may be something more human and more unsettling. It may reveal how fragile our confidence has always been. The idea that reality might be a kind of construct did not begin on the internet. Philosophers have wondered for centuries whether the world we touch is the world as it truly is, or only the version our minds are able to process. Plato imagined shadows on a cave wall. Descartes questioned whether all experience could be deceiving him. Modern physics, in its own cautious language, has asked whether space, time, and matter are as solid as they appear. The simulation hypothesis gives that old unease a modern costume. It suggests, not as established fact, but as a provocative possibility, that a sufficiently advanced civilization could build a universe so detailed its inhabitants would never know it was made. Then comes the more visual idea: rendering. In a video game, distant objects are simplified until the player approaches. Crowds repeat faces. Background details load only when needed. The comparison is imperfect, but it is powerful, because it gives ordinary people a vocabulary for strangeness. If the world were being rendered, where would its strain appear? At the edges of perception, in crowds, in mirrors, in fast-moving traffic, in the half-second between attention and memory. That is why the first category of clips feels so unnerving. They do not show monsters or miracles. They show ordinary things that simply stop behaving like themselves. A pigeon floats over a narrow street, wings open but motionless. Below it, cars continue moving. People walk past without looking up. In another clip, a plane seems suspended over a highway, its nose fixed in the clouds, its body refusing to advance while traffic rolls beneath it. The practical explanations arrive quickly, and many are reasonable. A bird facing a strong headwind can appear still from a certain angle. A plane approaching a runway may look frozen if the viewer is moving at just the right speed. A camera lens, a compressed zoom, or a brief interruption in playback can make motion seem stranger than it is. Still, the best of these clips carry a strange emotional weight. The background moves. The witness breathes. The frame trembles in the hand. Only the object in question appears to have been left behind by time. Some call it a localized time stop, a small pocket where one piece of the world has missed the next frame. It is only a theory, and not a scientific one in any formal sense, but the phrase lingers because it names the feeling perfectly. If time can seem to pause around a single bird, then the next question becomes harder to dismiss. What happens when the world does not pause, but inserts something new? On a rain-darkened highway, a dashboard camera records 3 lanes of ordinary motion. Headlights stretch across wet pavement. A truck passes. Then, in the space where there was nothing a moment before, a car appears, angled strangely, as if dropped into traffic by an unseen hand. These are the so-called spawned vehicle clips. They are often brief, grainy, and disputed. A car may have emerged from a blind spot. A dark body panel may have blended into shadow. The lens may have been wide enough to distort depth, making an ordinary merge look like an arrival from nowhere. But there are moments when the explanation does not satisfy the eye. A vehicle appears too abruptly. Its position seems wrong. The surrounding drivers react a fraction too late, as though they are also trying to understand what has entered the road. In simulation language, people call this a rendering error. In older language, it resembles a timeline slip, two possible sequences of events crossing for an instant, leaving behind a visible seam. Neither idea can be treated as proof. The evidence is too incomplete. But the unease is real, because traffic is one of the places where reality must be dependable. At 60 miles an hour, there is no room for mystery. And yet, the strangest clips are not always the dangerous ones. Sometimes the anomaly stands quietly in a crowd, wearing the same coat twice. A subway platform fills with morning commuters. Then two women enter the frame, both wearing red scarves, beige coats, black shoes, and identical expressions of concentration. They move with the same rhythm, pause near the same pillar, check their phones at almost the same moment. Seconds later, two men in matching jackets cross behind them, their steps nearly synchronized. Coincidence can be remarkably theatrical. Stores sell the same clothes. Commuters share schedules. Human beings imitate one another without realizing it. In cities, patterns emerge because millions of lives are pressed into the same narrow corridors of time. Still, the duplication clips have a peculiar stillness. They feel less like coincidence and more like repetition. This is where the idea of recycled assets enters the conversation. In digital worlds, designers reuse faces, gestures, clothing, and background figures to save memory. When viewers see identical strangers moving through public space, they borrow that language and call them NPCs. The term can be careless when used for real people. Every stranger carries a private life as complex as our own. But the clips touch something older than internet humor. The fear that the crowd may not be as individual as it appears. If the world repeats bodies, might it also repeat sounds? Might it recycle not just people but entire events? The next evidence does not look like a glitch at all. It sounds like one. The sky is empty, but the sound arrives like metal dragging across the roof of the world. In recordings from quiet neighborhoods and rural roads, people step outside with their phones raised, listening to deep trumpet-like groans, industrial echoes, or low mechanical vibrations that seem to come from nowhere. These sky trumpet clips have appeared in many countries, and their explanations vary. Distant construction, atmospheric ducting, trains, factories, aircraft, and audio manipulation have all been proposed. Sound can travel in strange ways, especially across cold air and open land. What seems overhead may be miles away. Then there are the invisible collision videos, cars jolting as if they hit a barrier on an empty road, cyclists thrown sideways without visible contact, objects stopping against something the camera does not show. Again, many explanations are possible. Fishing line, road debris, compression artifacts, prank setups, and missing context can all produce deceptive images. But together, the sound and collision clips introduce a different kind of mystery. They suggest not a visible error, but an absent cause. Something is experienced, recorded, and reacted to, yet its source remains outside the frame. This is where the story turns. The most unsettling glitches may not be the things we see. They may be the things that leave evidence while refusing to appear. And shadows, more than anything else, belong to that borderland. A security camera watches an empty driveway at noon. The sun is high, the pavement pale, the scene ordinary. Then a dark shape moves across the ground, sliding against the direction of nearby shadows, stretching and folding as though it belongs to something walking just outside the visible world. Shadow entity clips are difficult because cameras struggle with light. Automatic exposure can deepen contrast. Passing clouds can alter an image. Reflections from windows, moving branches, and insects near the lens can create forms that look intentional after the fact. Yet the most compelling clips are not merely dark patches. They move with timing that feels purposeful. They cross thresholds. They pause near doorways. In some cases, people in the footage turn as if they sensed something just before the shadow appears. Then comes the impossible reflection. A mirror shows a person's hand lifting after the person has already lowered it. A window catches a face turned one way while the body in the room looks another. Most can be explained by editing, delay, double glass, or a second figure outside the frame. But a few remain emotionally stubborn. Here the midpoint of the mystery reveals itself. These clips are not only asking whether reality glitches, they are asking whether perception is always delayed, incomplete, and quietly edited before we ever call it real. If the world can misalign a shadow or reflection, could it also misplace an object entirely? A coffee cup sits on a kitchen counter. A person reaches for something in a drawer, turns back, and the cup is gone. Not knocked over, not moved by a visible hand, simply absent from the frame where it had rested a second earlier. This is often linked to the jot phenomenon, a term sometimes used for objects that seem to jump from one place to another. Keys vanish from a table and appear in a locked room. A tool disappears from a workbench and returns days later in plain sight. Most such stories belong to memory, stress, distraction, or the ordinary chaos of domestic life. CCTV changes the emotional texture. When an object disappears on camera, the mind feels less free to dismiss it. Still, digital video can drop frames. Compression can blur motion. A person's arm, a pet, or a shifting camera angle may hide the moment of removal. The question is not whether every vanishing object is extraordinary. Most probably are not. The deeper question is why absence feels so powerful when the evidence is visual. We are accustomed to doubting memory. We are less accustomed to doubting a machine. But machines have blind spots too. And sometimes those blind spots do not erase a coffee cup. They paint entire cities across the sky. Above a rural horizon, towers appear where no towers should be. In certain widely shared clips, a modern skyline seems to hover in the clouds, faint and enormous, as if a city has been lifted from the earth and placed behind a veil of mist. Science offers a beautiful possibility: Fata Morgana, a complex mirage caused by layers of air at different temperatures bending light across distance. Ships can seem to float above the ocean, coastlines can stretch and stack. Buildings beyond the horizon can appear displaced, distorted, and dreamlike. That explanation is powerful, and in many cases likely. But it does not reduce the wonder. If the atmosphere can fold light so elegantly that a distant city appears in the wrong place, then reality is already stranger than ordinary vision suggests. Some viewers go further, seeing sky cities as glimpses of parallel landscapes or overlapping realities. The evidence remains far too thin for such a conclusion, but the feeling is understandable. A skyline in the clouds resembles a memory the Earth has not yet lived. The time-slip clips sharpen that feeling. A pedestrian flickers for a fraction of a second, and modern clothing seems replaced by older attire. A hat, a coat, a silhouette from another decade. Usually, compression, motion blur, or changing light is responsible. But once the idea of misplaced images enters the mind, every frame becomes a doorway. The strangest footage is sometimes the quietest. A child's toy lies on a bright living room carpet surrounded by color, red cushions, green plants, blue light from a television. Yet the toy itself appears entirely gray, as if it has been drained of hue while everything around it remains saturated. These colorless zone clips have become more common as phone cameras grow more advanced and image processing becomes more aggressive. Modern devices do not merely record light, they interpret it. They balance color, reduce noise, sharpen edges, combine frames, and sometimes guess at what the final image should look like. A grayscale patch could be a fabric with unusual reflectance, a sensor issue, a filter, a compression error, or lighting that confuses automatic processing. Recent cameras are powerful, but they are also opinionated. They quietly make choices on our behalf. Still, the image of a colorless object in a colorful room has symbolic force. It feels like a place the world forgot to finish. Not an explosion or apparition, but a missing layer. A small area where the code, if there is code, has not fully colored the surface. By the 10th glitch, the pattern has changed. We began with objects behaving strangely. Now we are facing a subtler possibility, that every image is a negotiation between reality, technology, and belief. Science has not been absent from this journey. It has been waiting at the edge. In theoretical physics, some ideas sound almost mystical until the mathematics behind them appears. The holographic principle is one of those ideas. In simple terms, it suggests that the information contained in a volume of space might be described on a boundary, somewhat like a three-dimensional image emerging from a two-dimensional surface. This does not mean the universe is a cheap projection or that a camera glitch proves we live inside a computer. Serious science is more careful than that. The holographic universe remains a framework explored in relation to gravity, black holes, and the nature of information. Yet it changes the emotional weather of the discussion. Matter, space, and time may not be as intuitive as they seem. What feels solid to the hand may be built from relationships, fields, probabilities, and information structures far beyond everyday perception. When viewers watch a frozen bird or an impossible reflection, they are not doing physics, but they are participating in a very old human impulse, taking a strange observation and asking whether it points to a deeper order. The danger is mistaking wonder for evidence. The opportunity is allowing wonder to keep inquiry alive. So the scientific question becomes sharper. How many of these clips can be explained by optics and cameras? And if most can, what do we do with the few that resist simple dismissal? Cameras are not neutral witnesses. A rolling shutter can bend a moving object. A slow frame rate can make rotation seem still. Compression can erase details. Autofocus can hunt across glass. Reflections can double images, and artificial intelligence inside modern phones can quietly repair a scene in ways the user never sees. For investigators, this matters. Before reaching for parallel realities, one must ask about shutter speed, lens angle, metadata, editing history, weather, distance, and the original file. A copied clip on social media is already weakened evidence. It has passed through too many hands, too many platforms, too many invisible alterations. But the stronger cases share qualities that keep people watching. Multiple witnesses react in real time. The anomaly appears from more than one angle. Environmental details behave normally around it. The object or shadow interacts with the scene in a way that seems difficult to fake casually. None of that proves a rupture in reality. It only raises the standard of the question. The mystery is not defeated by skepticism. It is refined by it. A careful mind can hold two truths at once. Many glitch videos are mistakes, illusions, or clever edits. A small number remain unresolved because the available evidence is incomplete, and incompleteness has a strange power. It leaves room for memory to enter, and memory has its own history of rewriting the world. The Mandela effect begins with a quiet discomfort. Many people remember something differently than the record shows. A phrase, a logo, a movie line, a childhood image. The usual explanations are human and well-studied. Memory is reconstructive. We store fragments, emotions, associations, and then rebuild the past each time we recall it. But real-time glitch clips feel like a visual cousin of that experience. Instead of discovering years later that a memory does not match the archive, the viewer watches the mismatch happen inside the present. A reflection lags, an object vanishes, a person seems briefly out of time. This is where the story becomes less about proving a theory and more about understanding ourselves. We are creatures who need continuity. We need yesterday to connect to today, and today to make room for tomorrow. When a clip interrupts that chain, even for a second, it touches something intimate. For older viewers especially, the feeling may be familiar. A street from childhood replaced by glass towers. A familiar voice preserved on an old recording. A photograph where the people seem both present and unreachable. Time already behaves like a mystery in human life. The camera did not create that mystery. It gave it a frame. And as the final question approaches, we return to the simplest fact of all. Our eyes were never built to see everything. Human vision occupies only a narrow band of the electromagnetic spectrum. Around us, always, are radio waves, infrared heat, ultraviolet light, magnetic fields, particles, signals, and motions too small or too vast for our senses to hold. We live inside an ocean of reality and experience only a thin surface of it. So when we call something a glitch, we may be naming the wrong thing. It may be a camera failure. It may be a trick of atmosphere, memory, compression, or chance. It may be an ordinary event seen from the one angle that makes it look impossible. The evidence remains incomplete, and incomplete evidence should be treated with humility. But humility does not mean indifference. These clips matter because they reveal the border between certainty and wonder. They remind us that seeing is not the same as understanding, and that even the familiar world can become mysterious when watched closely enough. If you have ever caught something strange on your own phone, describe it, preserve the original file, and look at it carefully before deciding what it means. The more thoughtfully we document, the more honestly we can ask what the system is. And if this question stays with you, continue with our previous journey. 10 archaeological anomalies, proving our timeline has been reset. For now, do not panic. Do not rush to believe. Just look again and maybe do not blink too quickly.